Imagine buying a revolutionary car, silent, that doesn't pollute the air and promises a cleaner future. But in practice, you discover it lets you down at the wrong time. Welcome to the nightmare of electric vehicle owners without adequate infrastructure. And the most curious part? The problem isn't a lack of technology, but a lack of intelligence in expanding that technology. We're literally putting the car in front of the chargers. The big promise of EVs is to replace cars powered by fossil fuels, but it's no use selling thousands of electric vehicles if drivers still struggle to find a reliable charger. It's like offering a state-of-the-art phone without any outlets to charge it. Meanwhile, car manufacturers advertise cars with a 500-kilometer range, but forget to mention that if you need to recharge in the middle of the road, you might end up waiting longer than a fan waiting for their team's first title in decades. And depending on the team, that wait could feel like an eternity. To make things worse, the infrastructure is still crawling. Broken chargers, huge lines, and charging times that would make even a turtle impatiently check its watch. Want an impactful statistic? A 2022 survey by Forbes found that 62% of EV owners have already abandoned trips for fear of running out of battery. In other words, they bought a brand new car to gain freedom, but now live as hostages to range anxiety. It's the ultimate irony, swapping gasoline dependency for the terror of, what if I can't find a charger? And if you think this dilemma is only for pioneering enthusiasts, think again. This problem affects everyone. Rideshare drivers who can't afford to waste hours charging, truck drivers who need to keep moving, families just trying to get to their destination without planning a survival movie route, and even students who already have enough anxiety over exams without worrying about their car's battery. If you don't have a private charger in your garage, every trip becomes a real gamble. And here comes the question that exposes the contradiction. Why do we invest so heavily in subsidies to buy EVs, but don't put the same energy, no pun intended, or maybe into the infrastructure that makes them truly viable? It's like giving free tickets to a concert, but forgetting to build the stadium. China has already figured out this logic and invests 4 times more in charging stations than in discounts for buyers. And guess what? Their electric transition is speeding up while many countries are still tripping over the charging cable. Literally. In the United States, for example, even with incentives and beautiful speeches about a sustainable future, the charging network looks like one of those school projects done the night before. No standardization, no planning, and completely incapable of keeping up with the growing demand. The result? Frustrated drivers and slower adoption than expected. But it's not just about installing more chargers, because the math doesn't add up if each new charging point is ridiculously expensive. And that's another big problem, the absurd cost of infrastructure. A fast charging station with 4 ports can cost between $470,000 and $725,000. Why so expensive? Part of the answer lies in a component called the isolation link, which ensures that you don't get an electric shock of several thousand volts when you touch the car. After all, no one wants to turn a simple charge into an electrocution experience. Safety is key, of course, but isn't there a cheaper and equally effective way to solve this? While no one figures that out, prices continue to soar and infrastructure expansion continues at a snail's pace. Now think about this. If we reduce the cost of stations, more investors would enter the game. With more investors, more chargers would be installed. With more chargers, more drivers would feel confident switching their combustion cars for an EV. With more EVs on the road, the industry gains scale, production costs drop, and electric cars themselves can become more affordable. This is the virtuous cycle that can truly make electric mobility a viable option for everyone, not just for those who have a garage equipped with a dedicated outlet. But for this gear to turn, governments and businesses need to focus on the right part of the equation. Without infrastructure, there's no electric revolution that will hold. And as long as this foundation isn't solid, any progress will be like a house of cards about to collapse at the slightest sign of wind. So, here's the reflection. It's no use pushing EVs to the market if we still treat chargers as a luxury, when, in fact, they should be as common a necessity as gas stations. Do we really want to abandon fossil fuels? Great. But this won't happen just with incentives for buying and optimistic speeches. We need to stop just selling the promise of an electric future and start paving it with real, reliable, and accessible infrastructure. Because, at the end of the day, No one wants to drive a car powered by hope. They want a car that will get them to their destination without surprises along the way. After all, no one buys a vehicle to experience a survival adventure every time they need a recharge.